Call the meeting to order. Will you call the roll, Becky?
Here. Here.
Here. Chris.
Here.
Beth.
Here.
Sharice. Here. Okay, and we're missing John and Jane and Lauren.
3, so we've got 6. Have a quorum. At this time, are there any additions, corrections, modifications to the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second to that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, we approve the agenda. Public comments, do we have any other than our committee? They're public, I think. I've probably been looking at the wrong one. We're bringing that report in right away, aren't we? Now?
Yes.
Okay, let's have first of all, we'd like to thank the people that are going to report to you, because they're just the front people for a committee that worked hard. So, would you like to introduce them, Celeste?
Thank you very much, Chris. So as Chris was saying, thank you very much to the process team for the strategic planning effort that we have. You worked hard over a period of months, and we've got one more meeting after this, translating what the board talked about, what the staff talked about, bringing it together in a cohesive manner over a period of months, listening to feedback from the community with the community survey, developing the community survey, looking and working with the community ambassador feedback, and really incorporating what we heard from our community and our board and bringing it together to you so that you can make good decisions for us at the library in serving our community. So we have 2 board members on the process team, Barbara Jones and Jane Williams. We have a community member, Joan Hood. Thank you very much, Joan. And then we have 2 staff members that work on the front lines, Robin Hayden and Joel Spencer. And then we have administrators, Anka Voss, who's no longer with us at the library, Rachel Fuller, Don Cassidy, and myself. So we are happy to present to you tonight information, and of course everything was run and facilitated by Amanda Standard. Thank you very much for all the work you have done in keeping us all on track. So Amanda is going to start off the presentation to you, and then when we are all done, then you will have a discussion amongst yourselves and finish up the parts of the strategic planning process for today. And Amanda will tell you more about the timeline after that next.
Awesome. So this is an exciting night because this represents a transition in our process. You all have an updated timeline in front of you from our strategic planning process. You know by now that I like to start with our process and grounding us with where we've been and where we're going. You will notice that we are very far in our process. We're all the way on the back page with only a few boxes that aren't checked off yet. And as Celeste mentioned, the process team has largely done their work, and tonight is the transition from their work to you. When you last met, the board met, it was for your retreat session. And that's when you all did a lot of really hard work thinking about our 4 strategic directions that we had identified, how we were defining those strategic directions, what kinds of goals we might have under those strategic directions. And then after your meeting, the staff met the very next week and talked about, like, okay, this is what the board is thinking for our way forward, then how do we staff see ourselves doing, kind of organizing the work that we're doing already, because as we all know, there's a lot going on. But then what else do we see happening, or what else needs to happen? So after the staff retreats, we've started typing up all of the information. There was a lot, and that is what will largely inform our activity plan, which is what we'll work on after the board actually approves the plan. So again, tonight is our presentation to you of the plan that reflects all of the input that you all have given over this process. Our next step then, after we kind of finalize some things tonight, is to meet next month with the Friends and Foundation Board to get their input as well. They're very important supporting organizations to the library, so we want to hear from them and get their reaction. And then, if there's any other updates, we'll make those, and the board will then hopefully approve the plan in December. So we're in the final stretch of the planning process, but as I've been telling the planning team, the process team, this is really just the beginning, because getting to this point of having the message and the goal statements and all of that really is just what starts to drive implementation. So the implementation is what the library's job is, and you'll hear lots of progress report about that, but you won't on a monthly basis be seeing one of us talking about what's going on with staff planning for implementation and the evaluation framework and all of that. So you all are in the final stretch of this planning process, but also know that then there's a lot of other work that's going to happen after you approve the document. So tonight, we're going to, members of the process team are going to present the plan to you. It's our hope that you will see your discussions reflected in the plan document. I also hope you've had time to read the full plan document, because what we're going to present is a little bit of an abbreviated version, just a chance to kind of hear everything out loud. We're going to go through the entire plan, and then after they've given their presentation, we will go back and look at each strategic direction, the goal statements, make sure we're happy, comfortable with those, how we're defining those strategic directions and the goals. And then finally, we're going to talk about mission and vision, which are on the wall behind you, so you can look forward to that as well. The process team is going to go through their presentation without questions, because we're going to do that questions and discussions at the end. Okay? So I'm going to start us off by, and we're going to really follow the outline, or follow the organization of the actual strategic plan document that you have in front of you. One thing that you will note is missing is the graphics. We have not had a chance to get to those yet, but do know that that graphical one-page plan, along with making this document a lot prettier, is on our plate, and we hope to have that to show you next month. There are some introductory sections to the plan. These are kind of standard things that you would see in any strategic plan. They just kind of ground us in who is this plan for, so about the library. There's some information about the people involved in the planning process. They're listed there. And then there's actually a section starting on page 5 called planning process, and it really just walks through that timeline. There's, of course, a couple of empty spots for some different things that haven't been finalized yet, but we'll fill those in. And really, these beginning parts are just so anyone who's reading this from the public could read through it and say, okay, I know who this organization is, I know who was involved in this planning process, I understand the process that they went through. And then the next section is the data highlights. So we plan to add the learning report as an appendix to the strategic plan, but we wanted to at least pull out some key things in this particular section. Just again, here are some highlights of what informed us as we were going through the strategic planning process. So anyone downloading this from our website, where it will be posted eventually, can read that entire learning report. But if they just want the couple of page overview, they can read page 7 and 8 in the plan. So again, fairly standard stuff. We are not going to come back to these sections, but if you see any edits or anything maybe that concerns you, those are things you can email to Celeste, and we will look at those and edit those before the next meeting. The next sections on page 9 are the vision and mission, and you can see that this is largely unfinished because we're still working with several statements, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Our goal tonight is to finalize these statements. We want to have something we feel good about. Doesn't mean we can't change it after tonight, but we do want to see if we can get to consensus on these statements, because you worked hard on them at the retreat, and I think we've narrowed down to a couple of options that are pretty good. The next 4 pages, actually, there's one more page that kind of sets up the what's coming in the plan. But starting on page 11, each page then is devoted to a different strategic direction, and a different member of the process team is going to present each of those. So who's Embrace? Is that you, Tom? Okay, so here's Embrace. Should I go there? Wherever you're comfortable. I will advance the slides.
So I'm going to just pretty much read, I'm not going to expound much beyond this just for the benefit of the camera. So for Embrace, the way we've defined it so far is we cultivate equity, civility, and belonging by learning about and responding to our community. And the kind of quick way to describe it, we welcome all. So the 2 goals that have been put forward for this are we provide a welcoming and inviting space for civil discourse and personal connections. And we engage in community dialogue to understand and respond to the unique needs of our community. So some of the possible activities that the staff came up with to go along with these goals, Teen Open Lab and cultural programs. And then for the second one, outreach activities throughout the community, a post-program survey surveys to create feedback loops. And of course, Amanda has mentioned before that we're going to be evaluating our success. So some potential measures of success in this particular pillar: evaluations and patron satisfaction feedback, the numbers of new card holders, and increased circulation and usage. We plan to repeat the community survey in 3 years and see how we're doing. And then also increased programs and tracking the attendance at those programs.
Who's next? Who's doing Rachel?
Question, Barbara has a question.
Did you want us to wait till the very end?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alright, so the second pillar in the strategic plan is enrich. And so far that's been defined as we connect people with the tools and resources for learning and leading productive lives. In short, we spark curiosity. There are 2 goals under this pillar. We connect people to resources and technology for personal growth, leading to greater fulfillment. And we expand horizons and facilitate knowledge exchange by offering diverse programs. Possible activities for those 2 goals include diverse collections and reading programs, computer usage, website update and app development, programs for specific populations, and Champaign County Historical Archives local history and genealogy programs. Potential ways that we can measure success for this pillar is increased awareness of resources and services, website hits and app downloads, increased computer usage and Wi-Fi usage, and increased program attendance for specific populations.
Joel, I think you're next.
So our third strategic direction is empower, which we've summarized as we help our community thrive by creating connections and working with partners. In short, we contribute to a strong social fabric. The 2 goals: we make the community better for all by promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion through our collections and programs. And number 2, we stimulate connections to create a vibrant, engaged community. Possible activities, examples, meeting space for community groups, add to our existing foreign language collections, regular diversity training for staff, author visits, partnerships with schools and local organizations, potential measures of success or metrics: increased meeting room usage, increased circulation of foreign language materials, increased computer and Wi-Fi usage, and increase in patrons coming to the library after seeing the library at an outreach event.
Is there any hands? And John.
The 4th strategic direction or pillar is enhance. We are mindful of the wide array of resources needed to solve evolving community needs and are transparent with our operations. We are a strong organization. The first goal: we steward/develop our physical and financial resources to allow for growth and sustainability. A possible activity for that goal: conduct space needs analysis to guide remodeling or expansion, update landscaping campus-wide. And a potential measure of success for that goal is increased resources for future sustainability and growth. The second goal: we cultivate continuous improvement among board and staff members to create increased engagement, satisfaction, and retention. Possible activities are staff culture assessment, board capacity assessment, and offering continuing education opportunities. And a measure of success for that goal could be increased job satisfaction and employee retention.
So, Barbara Jones, you're gonna
Yes.
do a little wrap-up for us.
Okay, so the next steps include a meeting that'll take place, I think, on November 12th, with the board, the Friends, and the Foundation to go over all of this. The plan will be approved in December. Then the staff at the library will work on the activity plan that is how they will put into practice the what we've talked about here. And then the process team will convene one more time for an evaluation discussion and create an evaluation framework. How do we keep up with what we're doing and make sure we're on track. And the reporting on this will always align with the directions the strategic directions we've planned. And then in 2022, a comprehensive review and development of a process to refresh the plan.
So that walks us through the document that's in front of you.
Yes.
It's this, at this point, that actually the process team is transitioning this plan to you. So you now own this plan. We're going to go back to the 4 strategic directions because we want to do a check-in here. We want to make sure that the words say what you want them to say. Specifically around the definition, how we're defining each strategic direction, and the goal statements. So I'm going to pull each one up on the screen one by one. I encourage you to look at what's in your packet as well too. And please bring forward any concerns. We'll spend as much time as we need to on each of them.
Yeah. At the last meeting, I said I was going to check on the term civil discourse, and I did. I talked to American Library Association, to Nancy Cronick, who is in charge of those issues. She suggested we not use civil discourse. It has become controversial in recent years because, rightly or wrongly, some minority groups feel that the term civil discourse leaves them out and promotes the majority point of view. So I would suggest that we leave it out. I don't know. I know what we all mean, but if there's something else, she said civic engagement, but I know that's different, and I don't know what you want to do about that. But she highly recommended we leave it out.
If I can just add to what you're saying, the reason that we talked about this as the process team is that when we were doing the staff retreat, there were a couple of younger staff members who did not know what civil discourse was. So we were touching base on, are there different words that we can use to make it more accessible?
Yeah.
And then Barbara thought, well, actually, this might be a touch point in a different direction as well. So there's really 2 reasons to consider potentially using different words there.
And I don't have a solution, I must say, and neither did Nancy, but did it come from the staff or from the board? I mean, that's what I don't know if any of you...
The word civil discourse?
Yeah.
It came from the board at the retreat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I imagine dialogue, which is in the second one, doesn't quite convey the meaning, because if we're inviting space for dialogue...
Well, but I think it might. I mean,
even though we use it the next time, but I think you're saying rather than discussion or debate, dialogue, I think is kind of reaching those different points of view or coming together to discuss things. So that might be a substitute?
I like it.
And a way to get around that using it in 2 places is to change the second one to just say, we engage the community to understand and respond to. So just take dialogue out of it completely.
That's good. Perfect.
So consensus around adding dialogue instead of civil discourse, and then changing the second one to take dialogue out. Okay. We'll do that. Other thoughts on the definition or goals here?
My major concern all the way through here is that once these developed, the potential measurements, we have actual measurements that can be measured. I mean, what you're saying here is just a skeleton, right?
Yeah.
For a means of measurement. But I want what we presently have maybe stated in that measurement and what we achieve either in 3 years or each year.
Right.
In terms of the potential measurements.
So you're talking about adding targets, and I don't encourage boards to do that because I think that sometimes sets up a false sense of failure, or not a false sense, it sets up failure.
If you don't meet the target.
Right, because there are a lot of factors that the library doesn't control in terms of, like, let's say you say, we want to increase cardholders by 25%. That's amazing, we all want that. But there are a lot of other factors that we can't influence, and so then if we come back to you, board, and say, we only increase cardholders by 5%, that seems like a failure of the plan when it's not.
I buy that we may not meet our goal, but we've got to set our goal very concretely, or we aren't shooting at anything. I think it's got to be very specifically dated, and like I say, we can either do it year by year, if it's a 3-year plan, which would be harder to do, but at the end of 3 years, I want to say we had a goal of 25% or whatever it is, and we only made 15%. Okay, why did we only make 15% is a way to evaluate this. I want numbers now.
Sure. So if you're talking a little bit of a difference between a goal and a target, because our goals are here on the screen and they're not numbers in those.
Okay, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
The potential measurements things, I want those defined better.
Yes.
I know you're just kind of generalized right now, but I think when we write those, and will that be in the next edition?
So the evaluation framework is something that the process team will develop at their last meeting in February, probably.
Yeah, okay,
You or I here are giving them direction to add targets into the evaluation framework.
I would be interested in hearing input from anybody else, how they feel about that.
I think it's open for us to do that, Chris, in the next steps. It's measurement for each goal will vary, and some activities are best evaluated by collecting data, and others by other means, like usage statistics, and I think we can...
And you'll never hit everything.
Right, but I think it's
here.
for
It
us
just seems to me
do.
like that if we don't put anything concrete down, we can say, oh, we met our goal, when we really didn't even come close. And I think if we don't have something to evaluate what we put down as an initial plan, then we're just throwing away time. I mean, I know I'm being very ticky about this, but I think that's the only way you can have it. True evaluation is if you measure against either what it is today and what you want to do.
So what you're suggesting then is that, let's say that new card holders increased circulation and usage. So let's use that as an example. So if, let's say we have, and I know we have way more than 500 card holders, but just because I'm not good with math.
Yeah.
So let's just say we have 500 card holders, and you want a concrete number that says by December 2021, we will have 800 card holders. And then if we come to, like, we only have 650, then what do we do after that? Or
Well,
what does the
and
library do after that? Especially because, like Amanda said, you don't have, there are things that you cannot control. You can try to, increase social media or advertise or any of those things to get people to visit the library more and to make use of the library more. However, if we don't have anything concrete saying this is how we're going to get new card holders or something like that, that might be also, that's another, not just activity, but another responsibility that we're putting on the staff.
I guess one of the things I'm also saying is, just because we did not reach our goal, we did not fail.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying that there is no
I'm just
failure.
saying, you've got to have something that you're shooting for.
Okay.
Joan, you've been involved with this, would you say that?
Well, I think it's good to have targets. It's a little bit more complicated than going forward 3 years.
And I'm just questioning what we'll have down the road for this, because right now I think you've just generalized. But I think when we finally put it to paper, the whole thing, I would like to see something that is reasonable. I mean, I don't think we want to, you put a figure out there that you wouldn't possibly meet. I mean, we couldn't expect to. And history will tell us, you can't increase card 25%. That's not realistic. But if we say we're going to increase it so many and we miss it, why did we fail? Why did we not get it? Did we not have enough programs? Did we not have? And you've talked about evaluation from the client later. You ask them that question. Why did you think we did not have more people added cards this last year? Did we not do our job?
So
I don't see any other way we can.
I agree that I think metrics are important, some measurable outcome.
I think we have to be very mindful of what we're measuring though. So when we're measuring success towards a goal, sometimes defining that metric, that number of card holders, just to continue with the same example, may not be reflecting any towards, any significant progress toward that. So I agree that we need to have some quantifiable metrics, something to shoot for, something to kind of look towards. But at the same time, we have to be mindful when we're setting that up in that next step of what is it that we're measuring and how are we actually measuring success towards that goal versus just meeting a somewhat arbitrary target. And I think the timeline on all of those are going to have to be defined because we can look at and evaluate each of those different measures of success at different time points. So we may look at card holders on an annual basis, whereas we look at the community survey would be something data we would look at in 3 years versus patron satisfaction following each individual program. So there I think will be from the group timelines for each specific.
And even if I think the timeline definitely would enter into it. And even if we picked on something like the number of cards, that may be a silly thing to measure.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think they would have to be. We may put some things down that are not going to be important as we work through it to even give a lot of emphasis to. I could see
the trick to, you don't want to be a slave to the metrics for the metrics' sake. Part of the problem is, Chris, you gave a very good example. So what does it mean that we have 100 more cards?
Yeah.
So if we could actually, this is the trick to these things, what's the value of 100 more? Does this mean that by 100 more cards, there might be 50 children who have cards who have now started reading and now this has increased their literacy level? That's what you really want to measure, but it's very difficult to get to. So this is why you're setting these goals, but to actually just try to reduce it to numbers just for measurement's sake, you're correct. We want to set some targets, but we don't want to be a slave to the fact that we have to set targets so we can grade ourselves.
Okay, I buy that. Would you say though that right now we're a little too general to be able to evaluate on the basis of potential measurements, evaluate the patron satisfaction? How would you evaluate patron satisfaction if you don't have some metrics in which to evaluate that?
I think they talked about looking at post-program surveys,
Yeah.
and looking
Yes.
at feedback and evaluating
Yeah.
the
Right.
feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would be something that happened on a very regular basis.
Exactly. Yeah, so I just see these as
This is a
just
framework.
kind of drafty ideas right now that will be more fully
right.
fleshed
I
out. So
agree.
I'm not really fixating on
Right.
exactly what's up there for being, this is exactly what we're going to do, but saying, hey, these are areas, and then you kind of tease them out to
It's
say,
in here,
And
yeah.
I guess that's what I'm really asking Amanda is, where are we, I mean, I would not be satisfied with just leaving this as our measurements.
Sure.
So you're elaborating on that.
Yes, that's
Further
a separate
addition.
document, that's the
Yes.
evaluation framework document. The other
Right.
thing I'd like to offer into the discussion is that what we're really trying to do is cultivate a culture of continuous improvement. And so targets are great for certain things, and I like your point, Lupe, that some numbers show potentially what's achieving some goals, but maybe not others. And the idea is that we just are mindful of what measures are we collecting and what does it say? What story is that telling us, really?
And-
Yeah.
And what are we collecting it for? For example, is it for the city so we get more budget, so we get more money?
Yes.
Or what is it for? And I just wanted to add another thing. For me, it's all in here, next steps. I think that
Yeah.
pretty much mandates that we collect data. But I would like to add, the Gates Foundation uses stories now instead, because for some events, stories are better than the data. You have one person listening, or one person who gets a library card, let's say, and to interview them at some point, or and what did that mean to you? That sometimes those quotations for a little kid in front of a city council work better than numbers. That's all I'd add.
Well,
But I think we
stories are
need
data,
to,
too.
yeah,
That's how we
we
share
need to
information.
evaluate. I mean,
Yes.
definitely.
Okay, so all those points taken. Let's circle all the way back to how we're defining embrace and the goal. Anything else on the language here that you'd like to bring up before we move on to the next strategic direction? Okay, so enrich. Really here we're again focusing on how we're defining this and the goal statement. So any comments or concerns here?
I really like we spark curiosity.
Yeah.
That's
Me
great.
too.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, and that's
Good.
so let's move to empower. Same thing here, how we're defining it, and the goal statements, how do we feel about those?
I really like this one.
Me too.
I guess I would like a better definition of some way of, we stimulate connections to create a vibrant, engaged community. And I'm just trying to, because Chris, of course, brought up the metrics of everything, and I guess, is that going to be part of, with the measures of success, is that part of the stimulation? We increase circulation of language, increase use of meaning, space. I guess I want to see something that says, I don't know how that would be measured
Yeah.
on some level.
So that goal is really all about partnerships. And
Okay.
there are not currently potential measures of success that reflect how we would measure the number of partnerships or the quality of our partnerships.
Mhm.
One thing the board talked about at their retreat, and actually staff talked about at their retreats, is, we should be mindful about partnerships where there's synergies and not just partnering with anybody because they have, they want us to advertise for them or whatever. And so we have not done a good job in the potential measures of success talking about what that would look like to report back to you on that particular goal. And so maybe, and I don't know, I'm just putting this out there, that the stimulate connections, that it's really that we stimulate partnerships and that it's because connections can be, but connections of home connection.
That's it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Stimulate connections. So maybe we want to change that language to partnerships, stimulate partnerships to create a vibrant, or stimulate more partnerships, or stimulate creative partnerships, or something more defined. Yeah.
I think that part of number 2, though, had to do with people connecting with each other. So, for
Yes,
example,
that's right.
one of the examples was the fairy tale ball, and that's
Yeah.
not a partnership necessarily. We hire performers, but it's not a partnership event. That's part of the connections with the community with each other.
Okay.
So I think that with number 2, it's not just partnerships between the library and organizations. It is connections writ large.
I say, would we diminish it if we just put an and, connections and partnerships? Is that too much of the same?
Oh, I like
Or
that. Yeah, that would be good.
Connections and
Yeah.
partnerships, because I like your point.
Yeah.
Everybody like that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Everybody's nodding.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
That's good.
Okay. Anything else on empower? Okay, then we'll look at the last one, which is enhance. You'll notice there's a slash in goal 1 that's, because we'd like for you to discuss the word that should go there. We did have a couple of staff members kind of wonder about what the word steward meant or kind of understand if it is more of a development fundraising term. It's also very much used in the environmentalist movement. So I'll leave it to you to talk about what you like there.
I was really persuaded by what Joan said about that the word stewardship is still being used in the development community, and that convinced me we should keep it, and maybe, can we just leave it steward develop, or do we need to choose one?
I'm just for prettiness sake.
All right,
Out
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do whatever you want. I'm talking from the graphic point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the it's not, well, it is used in the environmental movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Use it a lot in government. Steward. To me, it has a very positive connotation
Yeah.
to to steward something takes, it's that accountability, responsibility versus developing, so.
Nurturing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I like steward.
I like Stewart.
Caretaking, not the control of. So that's what, when I see that word, that's what I think of, is that
Yeah.
you are mindfully taking care of something
Caring for it.
and
I like that.
not trying to control that. You're trying to
Yeah.
move it forward.
That's great. Anything else on this one? Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I think that this is a real good discussion because I think that we've never had a problem in this area. But I think the more you open, visible to people, telling the story, I mean, it's all kind of a lot of different things. So I think this was probably a pretty good review of that.
Good. Anything else on goal 2 or the definition here? Okay. So, great. I'm glad that you're feeling good about it. This is not your last chance to revisit this and think about it some more. But I do want to turn our attention to vision and mission now. And so on the wall behind you are the current statements that we're working with. And I invite you to come stand by them if you want, or just turn around. We're going to start with vision. I'm going to come back here. We have 3 statements that we're actually working with. These 2 statements came out of the 2 groups that were working on statements at the retreat. John has also offered a vision, which I realize is difficult to see because I've just written it in up there because I received it moments before the meeting, which it is achieving community growth by making resources available, which facilitate patron curiosity, lifelong learning, and personal growth. You will all remember from my many times mentioning that the vision statement is that aspirational thing that we want to achieve in the community, and that our mission is our very concrete how we're going to carry out our work so that we achieve our vision. The vision is something that should be short and memorable. So I would love for someone to speak for one of these statements and what do you like with it. They're a little different. Mission, we don't have as much difference in them, but these, especially thinking about transforming or nurturing as the first statement or achieving, are all a little bit different fields. So
I'll speak against John's because he's not here. The fact that what we hope, if we do our mission, what do we want as an outcome of this? And I don't see the library's role to be such as making the community grow.
yeah.
And that's what, when John said achieving community growth, I think we play a role in it, but I don't think
Yeah,
that's what
we don't
we're
always.
doing. So that's why I said, okay, that's it.
Okay.
And now, I've been going back and forth between these 2 visions because they are different from each other. And I like them both very much. Thinking about the role of the library in now and in the future,
I like the combination.
I think
The achieving and the nurturing.
the strongest words in this first one are empowerment and enrichment, as far as I'm concerned. It isn't the community, it is the community, but we're not the entire community. I mean, there's other places. But empowerment of the people that facilitate, use this facility, and their enrichment is probably.
yeah, I'm leaning towards the first one. The fun part of the second one is sparking curiosity. Those
Yeah.
are great words.
Right.
We have fostering in our mission.
Potentially.
We also have potentially. We also have enrich in our mission.
Well, enrich and, I'm sorry, empower is one of the strategic directions.
Exactly.
Also.
For me, the 2 big words are transforming and nurturing.
Transforming?
To me, those are the power words in the statements,
And they're
the
different.
action verb of what we're doing. And I think to speak to what you said about John's, the achieving was kind of a turnoff in the first one. And for me, the transforming the community has the same connotation to me that, are we really taking on that big onus of transforming versus are we just being a player in this, a resource to nurture these changes down the road. So I do like the empowerment enrichment, but we use that later on in our pillars. Empower and enrich, so for me, I kind of lean towards the nurturing, just because again, it kind of has that very positive, very open, and less.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't figure out why, but that first one seems stilted to me, like empowerment and enrichment of whom. There's something about it that doesn't,
Okay.
I don't know, but maybe transforming and nurturing the community by sparking curiosity.
So,
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that, but that first one just seems
yeah.
stilted.
The first one
So-
to me sounds like the board. That-
Yeah.
Resistance is futile, you know? You know?
And while I applaud your attempt to combine them, I also want to remind us that we want this to be clear and easily rememberable,
Yeah.
memorable.
Right.
And so adding all of those together might get a little too much.
Okay.
Well, I'm not saying that these are perfect either, but
But I was thinking of a combination of what John wrote in the bottom one.
okay.
Nurturing community, and sparking curiosity by making resources available which facilitate patron curiosity, lifelong learning, and personal growth.
Something like
And I would argue that actually the statement's a mission statement. And that's
Me too. Yeah, and that's kind of
So I wrote it up here because
Yes,
John sent it to
yes.
us, but also
Yeah,
if
I
it's
know.
not here, I can say that.
Yeah, so I said it's a mission statement, he's saying, what
Yeah.
do you
Well,
do?
then switch it over there and do the same thing, but I think there's still something in what he wrote that can be used. I like the nurturing community.
I do
I do
too.
too.
I like
Yeah.
nurturing. It's a warmer, more
Yes.
inclusive word that doesn't say, we will transform you.
Well, yeah, to be
Yeah.
transforming implies that something needs to be changed, that it needs to be transformed.
Yes.
To me, that's not what we're going for.
No, but it just, but there's something about that word transform.
I agree,
Yes.
yeah.
And nurturing just sounds like, we're gonna help you along, that's our job. Just like, you know, it's like education, teaching, you are nurturing the community.
Yeah, and we're not doing it to them. We are nurturing it, and by sparking curiosity, then
That they are, right.
Exactly.
That comes
We're
from
not
them.
doing it to them.
Right.
That's the empowerment.
Yes, we're empowering.
Well, I really like the fostering the sense of belonging, because that's what we've all said from the beginning.
Yeah.
We want to be a welcoming
Yeah,
place, we
yeah.
want to be, so I really like the
Two.
second one.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, you've listened to everybody, what do you think now?
All the women they spoke.
That's pressure.
What did the staff say?
I need some testosterone in the room.
I guess the second one, the community growth, and I don't know what we're saying with community growth, because it's the people in this community
Okay.
may not be what we think it is today. It may be something entirely different. So that's the only thing that bothers me.
What if that word wasn't there? What if the community wasn't there?
Yeah.
So just nurturing needs to be in your mission, but it doesn't need to be.
Nurturing community.
Nurturing would be better.
Nurturing community.
I think what Chris is saying is nurturing growth.
Yeah, take
Just
community
nurturing.
out of the vision
Out.
statement.
Okay.
Because a sense of belonging implies community.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
works.
yeah.
Nurturing growth of what?
Yeah, I would
Nurturing.
Any kind of.
Any kind of growth.
No, nurturing,
Financial.
nurturing personal growth or nurturing. I keep
Yeah.
thinking there should be some kind of adjective.
Yeah, I do
Again,
too, like
vision
personal
statement,
or-
t-shirt.
I like the brevity, yeah, I agree.
I like brevity.
Taking words out, I think
Yeah.
is actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nurturing growth by sparking curiosity and fostering a sense of belonging.
I like it.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's live with that for a while. You can still change it. But let's talk about mission then. So if that's your vision, here's the three statements and actually a little addendum here by John. So we foster learning and enrich lives by providing access to diverse resources. We enrich lives and empower individuals by fostering learning and growth through access to diverse resources and a welcoming environment. We foster learning and enrich lives by providing access to diverse opportunities, resources, and a welcoming environment John's addendum is we foster learning and enrich lives by providing access to diverse opportunities and resources within an environment that welcomes our entire community. So, feelings here on any of these?
This is too wordy, I think.
Uh-huh.
I would say, well, that welcoming environment says what he said.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, I like what it says, but.
You think it's a little bit redundant?
Yeah, maybe, or just wordy, like, what did he?
And we've got fostering there, so
Yeah.
we want it here too.
That's true. Mhm.
Yeah. Let's see.
Rich lives
We spark learning,
Mhm.
by providing learning and growth
We need
opportunities.
welcoming environment. I mean,
We could
we
encourage.
talked so much about it.
We could encourage learning.
yeah,
There's another
encourage.
key word for
Something
it.
like that, yeah.
Encouraging
I like
learning.
encourage.
I forgot my marker, sorry.
What about at the top, we put that, we encourage learning and enrich lives, academic access.
That's good, I like that.
So just use encourage up here.
Even that, yeah, I think.
Encourage learning and enrich lives by providing access to diverse resources.
Great.
That's the shortest.
That's, yeah, that's.
Well,
the word.
because the diverse resources really includes
All kinds of.
the
Everything.
opportunities, the environment, I think
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah, that says it all.
The only thing I would, now I'm speaking as a staff member, do you want to add in programs here?
Yeah, or something, or opportunities, yeah, it just seems too short.
Yeah, well,
Something else besides resources.
Well, I like resources,
yeah.
but I think you need to.
Program, I like the word programs.
And programs, yeah, I agree, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because it is more than resources. It's,
Right.
I mean, you can say a program's a resource,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
kind of stretching it.
Encourage learning and enrich
Yeah.
lives by providing access to diverse resources and programs.
I like it. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that, I think that works.
All right. Let's live with that for a while. Awesome, great work, you guys. You will see an updated version of this soon. We'll send it out when we have it updated. So, thank you.
Did you want to quickly mention, Michael had some feedback as
Oh,
well, which he
shoot,
liked.
sorry.
He liked all this stuff. He contributed to the vision and mission statements. And his comments were looking at the facility and the space and the focus on young people and teens. He thought it was a really nice mix as we look ahead to think about teens and think about sustainability and how we want to, have a good place for teens to be as we are sustainable in the future. And part of that would go under the enhance as we're looking at our building and our projects that way. So just want to bring forward those things he was thinking as well. You are all free to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at hard work.
It's been a pleasure working with y'all, really. Thanks.
And the staff is, I'll always speak as a community person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Celeste is going to give us a rundown on the per capita grant.
So we get just over $50,000 a year from the state's per capita grant for libraries. And in order to get that money, we need to fill out a couple of reports. There's the annual report, the IPLAR, Illinois Public Library annual report, and then there's the per capita report, which is due in January, so we're working on that now. There are professional development opportunities mostly. The state wants to make sure that libraries across the state are facing the same direction, learning good things, and that there's always training going on. And so the board is asked on a yearly basis to look at part of the trustees' facts file, which you've got several chapters to read. And then we look at part of the serving our public standards, and we, the board, or we, the staff, report to you, the board, and talk through a different chapter a year. And then there's something else, usually there's going to be a report from one of the persons, one of my colleagues from the archives, talking about a state resource to make sure that people know what the state resources are available. So the chapter in Serving Our Public 3.0 that I'm reporting to you on, and you had the 3 pages in the board packet, has to do with personnel. So I'm happy to report that the library is fully up to speed on all areas but two. One of the areas is having a current strategic plan, which we will have in a minute. So that is moving ahead well. And then the other thing that they recommend that libraries do is have a evaluation process of staff every year. And we have not had one this year because we had been planning for the strategic plan and working around that. So we were looking at our, here's how we do evaluations in a big picture way. We put out a self-evaluation form for staff to complete, and they complete that form, and it has questions like, list your perceived job strengths, your goals met, and your accomplishments. We ask how you could improve your performance, because that way supervisors can give opportunities. And then we ask the party to list your job focus or specific goals for the coming period. Also consider any areas of interest in the library so that your supervisor can be alerted to relevant opportunities for experiences for you. So we try to focus on things that will help people feel good about their job and learn skills that will help them in their job. Sometimes there'll be a specific initiative for the year. So for example, the last time we did evals in 2017, the technology committee came up with a list of technology competencies based on the work that you were doing. So for example, if you work in the archive, you need to use some software and scanners that you wouldn't use if you worked in acquisitions. If you work in the teen open lab, you need to know how to use some of the recording software, whereas Becky and I don't need to know how to do that, but we need to know how to use the units in different ways. So last time we did evaluations, people did a self-ranking of how they performed in the technology competencies that a team of staff members put together. And then immediately following the evaluation, the supervisors work with staff who rated themselves like adequate or below so that we could bring them up to speed right away. This is the format that we've been using for a while. So people do a self-evaluation. They meet with their supervisor, have a discussion. The supervisor writes that up. I read all of those across the whole library, the self-evals and the write-ups. And then the supervisors then give them back. And they have a conversation, short or long, depending on the person, and talk through the goals and things like that. We were looking for a new process, and Dawn had reached out to the Management Association, which is a new name now, but it's an organization that helps libraries and nonprofits have management expertise you wouldn't otherwise have. And the question they asked us back is, what is it you want to measure? You can borrow any other place's evaluation form, but what is it you want to measure in your facility so that you can ask the right questions, so that when you ask those questions, you have a good metric. You know what you're going to get back, and you're guiding people in the way you want to point yourself. So we had budgeted this year to spend some money talking through professionals there, the directions we wanted to go, and get their feedback on how we could develop a tool that would help us measure that. We also, because this is a very time-intensive process, and because we've had feedback from some of the hourly employees that they don't feel this really captures their work as well, that some of their goals are more straightforward and not as long-term and more task-oriented and
What's the shelf?
mission-oriented.
What do you want really? What, I want to shell faster? Or
And sometimes,
can you make the numbers bigger? Or, I mean.
That's the kind of feedback we've asked for. So we have seen other places that have a different evaluation tool for hourly employees than for people that work 20 hours a week and more. So we were talking through all the pieces and parts. And as we started strategic planning, it made sense to pause all those activities until we worked with you to develop the plan, so that when we set goals with people, their goals are aligned with the strategic plan. So as they start their work for the next year and the next evaluation period, we're all pointing together towards the plan and the vision that you have set.
Let me ask the long term, where are these, what you've been doing, not necessarily that's what we're going to continue.
Yeah.
Where are they kept from
In
one year to the
people's
next?
personnel files.
In their personnel files. So you could go back in 3 years and say, if a staff member is having difficulty, you've done the same goals to achieve and you haven't achieved. What's wrong? We need to talk about that. So you do have them, they're permanent records in their personnel. Okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yep. And we don't wait. We're not an organization that waits and gives you a surprise email of like, you did these things 8 months ago.
Yeah.
If there's an issue with a staff person, then we give immediate feedback and coaching. Because again, what we want is success. We're always learning. We know that people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. So our job is to help guide and mentor and help people be pointing again in the same direction so that we can succeed together. that is that's the direction we take. And we've got a great staff, and we learn together a lot. And we get a lot of compliments from the public and from each other. Amanda has started a kudos board so that staff can give each other kudos, and we post them on an internal bulletin board, as well as managers can give kudos to staff. Again, public recognition of good work done. So we are paused in our evaluation process till this is completed, but we do talk with our colleagues regularly so that they know where we think they stand, and they can give us feedback as well.
Where are you? Oh, go
I
ahead.
was just saying, so my impression watching this, the worst thing an organization can do is let everything build up to that once a year evaluation, and that's just kind of silly. The once a year evaluation is just a time to formally have your face-to-face meeting, but what I've been watching and my understanding is you've been following the best practices where there's continuous dialogue between supervisors and staff, and so you don't let the things build up, but then because you do need things for the permanent record, the actual sit-down and having staff sometimes just think, hey, what did I do this year? And what I want to do. So it's a moment of reflection rather than like a punitive device.
I heard you say you were getting some consulting as to when I took evaluations, you put down what you wanted to result is the questions you ask. And so I like the idea that you would be changing your evaluation every year to fit either the strategic plan or their goals or something, so that changes. I think that's a very critical point. And I didn't know have you got somebody in mind or some organization that you can gather the questionnaire? I mean, that's what it comes down to. How will you develop the questionnaire that it might be different each year?
We'll probably have a similar format, but there might be a question or two that trades out again, depending on where the library's focus is. So we may pick one, looking at the vision, mission, and the pillars. We may say as an institution, this year we're going to focus on literacy and partnerships, for example. And we're going to see in the action plans at the department level, though, how the departments are prioritizing, and the departments will work on that. So acquisitions is not going to develop as many partnerships because that's not the nature of their department. But adult use services and development promotion does a lot of that work. So part of the questions are going to come out of those action plans based on your plan. And we don't have that finalized yet because the plan's not finalized.
And I guess I think it might have to be more personalized than one form, because you might have a part-time worker who none of this applies to. Their job is shelving every day, and it doesn't work.
And we might do that. We might have something separate for the hourly employees, but everyone has an expectation of providing excellent service, because that's the thing that we do. So looking at things like, how do you provide customer service generally? Do you ask questions when you need to? Are you a good communicator? Things like that might be questions across all of them.
Yeah.
But it is likely that we'll have a separate one for hourly employees versus the benefited staff.
I could see
But
that.
again, we'll tackle that as we finalize the plan, and that will help us point ourselves in the right direction. And then again, we will work with, it is likely we'll work with this professional organization because they can help coach us, tell us what to do, and we can see if we like it or not. But we'll get professional HR assistance to help.
Just so everybody knows, Alka did go through with her staff before she left, so that's kind of underway.
Yes, but we've got all of those, and Rachel will be delivering the people. So they get feedback from the person with whom they work this time.
I would like to put in a pitch to make sure you include hourly and guards and anybody who works in the building.
Everybody gets an evaluation.
Yeah, because I remember when I was at U of I's library with Paula Kaufman, she didn't know, none of us knew, but the guards were going around telling kids at the computers that something was inappropriate to look at. And we had no idea because we hadn't really thought about the guards. And so I use that as an example because, boy, was that a learning experience. We had been saying, we're for intellectual freedom and we don't filter. And here were the guards going, no. They were doing the shoulder tapping that we were all saying we never do.
Well, so I'm glad that you brought that up. Another point on the list that we do have is an overall orientation and process for all new employees. There's overall orientation everybody gets.
Wonderful.
And then there are things that are specific to each
Right.
department, instead, all employees.
Well, I think it's important to include everybody because even the hourly employees, we talk about retention and satisfaction. Everyone has a goal to do
That's
something
personal.
else,
Yeah.
so, maybe they're shelving now, but they have this ambition of doing something else later on. And part of that evaluation process is engaging them in what are their goals? What, what are they contributing? What could they be contributing? What are their skills that maybe we haven't tapped into? So it's a perfect opportunity to really, embrace our resources that we already have.
And hopefully not feel that by stating those goals that they'll be let go or anything else, because a lot of places, if you're not on the page that they think you ought to be on, that we don't want. I haven't been a shelfer years, decades ago. I always felt like sometimes when I was doing that, it's like I shelve books and I occasionally stand in at the curriculum, at the checkout desk, But I had one person that was above me all the time that criticized how I dressed all the time. And I didn't come to work in jeans. I came to work in skirts and heels. But I got criticized because I was just a shelver.
We know
And so, you don't want, it's like, because, eventually I would want to work on the curriculum desk, and I always wanted to be dressed appropriately to work on, I wanted to do that full time eventually. But like you said, no one ever asked me if that's what I might want to do. And I was always taught that you dress for the next job.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So I got criticized for wearing skirts and heels to shelve books. Don't your feet hurt? Why do you have to dress like that all the time? And, and it wasn't my supervisor, but it was somebody under her who thought at least that she was a supervisor. And, and of sorts, at least over me. And it kind of discouraged me. You just get to the point where you're like, oh God, I gotta go to work. And I don't want anybody to feel like there's, I want people to feel when they're being evaluated, they can be open about what their goals might be, even if it's not a goal to stay here. So that it's but because there's something that they could learn here that will help them on the next step. That's what I'm thinking. It'll make them they have to know that, I feel, that you have their back regardless of where they may end up. Even if they're not staying here, this is how we help people grow. We can't just grow the community. You want folks to have personal growth here too.
Agreed.
Okay, that's what I.
As we've talked about the director's evaluation in the past, it's always been timing, and I think timing will be critical with employees too. Because if they don't see this at the budget time necessarily, it's a better flow of ideas, I think. So.
Well, the wages are not tied, it's not merit-based at all, so wages are not tied to evaluations.
Yeah.
So we are clear to people that there's a chart, and on a yearly basis, this is how we get some increases. So people don't have to fear that they won't get a raise if they had a bumpy moment.
Is it part of the evaluation process now or in the future that they see that framework, that evaluation at the beginning of the evaluation cycle and then know what they're thinking about or working towards? I know that's part of our evaluation cycle with my staff is that at the beginning of the year, I present them, here's the format, here's this is what we're going to be looking at following. We check in halfway through the year, and then they see the final evaluation with their questions. So seeing that early on, knowing what's going to be expected of them, but also what opportunities they have to contribute feedback, sometimes helps stimulate that. So we're thinking about that in everything we do all along. And it's not some surprise at the end of the year, I don't know, I got to remember back 12 months what I was doing.
Exactly.
So just initiating that as we start, that what the expectations are.
Okay, is that pretty much okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
At this time, do I have a motion for removal or deletion of any items on the action item or consent agenda? A motion to approve?
I move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I thank you. Okay, the individual action items. The first one is revision of the archive collection management policy. Virtually grammatical. I mean, there's really nothing there. And this is one that we changed our bylaws so we can approve. So does somebody want to make a motion that we approve this?
So moved.
Second. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. The revision of the meeting room policy. Again, there's not anything in controversy here, so we can approve it tonight.
Okay, I just wondered, I know American Library Association's working on new meeting room policies and whether that was consulted.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know exactly what they're changing, but I know it's been a huge controversial deal, so this is in keeping with what they're,
With everything that is current right now.
Okay.
And if the ALA were to make some changes that
We could
are
bring it back.
unanticipated on our end, we would certainly do that again.
thank you.
A motion, Barbara?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I thank you on that one. Okay, the budget amendment for FY '20. Minor move. Does anybody have any questions? A motion?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
So do you need to ask for discussion? Do you have to ask for discussion? Is that part of the thing you have?
I didn't ask for any discussion items.
Yeah, it actually probably should be,
The first couple of things you did.
Do I need to go back on that one? I think we got approved. Somebody would have hollered, wouldn't they?
just say, is there any discussion? You can answer that.
Do you think I should go back to that one?
Sure, just for form's sake, yes.
Okay, was there any discussion on the budget amendment?
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor, I'll say it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Resolution to approve the RAM cleaning custodial services contract. Do you want to make any explanation or not?
It was in the director's report.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any other discussion or questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 2019-11 for the RAM Clean Custodial Services Contract.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Do we need to do, for resolutions, do we need to do everybody, yea or nay?
It's a contract that
No.
she will be authorized to.
Right now.
Okay, I'll just,
Okay, is there any question about Resolution 21912, the acceptance of the Illinois Art Council Agency grant? Did you tell me, or I've got here $2,700 or what? Yeah,
This was cool. Yeah.
any questions about it? Is there a motion?
I move to accept resolution 2019-12 to accept the Illinois Arts Council Agency grant.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Resolution to accept VOLO agreement for continued free Wi-Fi, $1,800. Is there any question?
I have one question.
Yes.
Are these the same people that supply the stuff for the hotspots?
Yes.
Are these the
The
hotspot
hotspot?
people, or this is just for the internet for the building?
They've got Wi-Fi.
But these are not the hotspot people.
Oh.
We partner with Mobile Beacon and TechSoup for the hotspots where people will meet us our building Wi-Fi.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to understand. All right.
I'll tell you what I questioned here is, to date, this has been a hand-in-glove agreement, and I had asked the director to think about how we might be able to enter this into the budget so that it's looked like, and it would have to, I think we agreed that we would have conversation with VOLO, isn't that what we?
There is a price, it's $1,500 a month in kind
Yes.
service.
Yes,
Is
so,
it-
yeah, so there is,
Is that-
this is.
So it's $18,000 a year service.
Yeah, but
For the
in terms of,
access to the tower.
in terms of showing that it's it's either in the budget or that it's, so that our audience, our community knows about this. Because before it has not. It's been we use your facility, we don't charge you for your service, for what we give you, and I think it should be apparent, transparent. Isn't that what we talked about?
Could we talk about that separately from approving the agreement?
Would be the discussion.
What are you asking?
So you're discussing, so we
Yeah.
need to make a move and then we can have a discussion.
Well, okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve Resolution 2019-13 to approve.
Is there,
Yes.
is there a second to that?
Second?
Okay, discussion. What did we, when we talked about whether, how we might be able to show, have them, they would evaluate what it is that they would want to charge for this. The concern was that they might charge different for different things. I don't care because I think they are the ones that are going to tell us what it's worth to them. So wasn't it that we left it that we could visit with them to see how receptive they were to being able to publicize this, in essence, gift to us?
So it's in the board packet, it's in there, it's $1,500 a month,
Okay,
so it is public. And the question that we would have to figure out on the administrative side, so I'm not saying no, just saying, Volo is giving us X amount of service.
yeah,
If they chose not to do that, we would then make a choice, would we want that level of service or a different level of service? So they're giving us $18,000 for the benefit for in a year, and we are giving them the exclusive rights to use the tower on our roof to project the Wi-Fi to other locations as well. So the question we would have to figure out is how would we show that in our budget? And that's Chris's point.
Yeah.
How would we show the value in the budget?
and I maintain it should be shown someplace other than a resolution from here.
And I'm not saying it's not, I'm
Yeah.
saying we would have to figure out what is the legitimate way to do that.
Yeah.
And I think we,
Legitimate is not the right word. What is the appropriate way to do that? And I don't have an answer for you right now.
and I think we said we'd have to talk with them because I think they'd have some input as to whether, how they wanted to show that.
Well, again, we have the number now, and that's the
Yeah,
important.
we have a number.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a contract of any sort, or is this an informal?
This is the contract you're signing.
Okay, so,
The
okay, I'm just trying to
resolution,
understand,
the
okay.
resolution
Is
is
the contract.
to allow me to sign the contract and
Okay.
go ahead in it. We've been working with them for years
Mhm.
without a written agreement, and we thought
That's-
it would be good to put
I
everything in
agree,
writing.
totally agree that written is
They've
good.
been very generous with
Yes,
us.
good.
So we're
And I
delighted to
don't-
put it in writing for a 5-year period, it is
Yeah.
renewable.
Yeah.
Is this the only tower, is there a tower on the city building? Or are we the,
I couldn't tell you what's on the city building.
okay.
I don't know.
Dennis, would you know whether there's
I don't know.
a tower in the city? Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
Volo, no, I don't believe that Volo is a tower on the city building, no.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you on that one. I see no discussion items. Report from the Friends
We have a meeting, a book sale coming up in November.
in November, right? Foundation,
You mean next week?
yeah, it's always the next week, and you never think about what transpired to report, I'm afraid. I'm guilty. The Heartland,
Yes, so Illinois Heartland Library Systems will be meeting with representatives from the Illinois Library Association at the Illinois Library Association Conference in Tinley Park, which is occurring later this month. They will be specifically having a discussion about how to better engage libraries from central and southern Illinois in ILA as an organization, because ILA has larger representation from the northern part of the state. So good conversations happening there. IHLS is also reviewing data about delivery to increase efficiency. So they're looking at the border lines for hubs and how they might be able to better deliver items because they're delivering a lot. They delivered 4.5 million items during the last fiscal year.
4.5 million.
Wow.
So they do great work, we love them.
Yes, I
But
guess.
wouldn't we have a terrible cost if that didn't exist?
Yes, yes, we would. If I go back up to the foundation is going to have a kickoff event to their fall campaign, November 7th from 5 to 7 at Silver Creek, and postcards will be going out
Oh,
Monday
okay.
to invite people who have been donors before to come celebrate the kickoff of the annual
Okay.
fundraising campaign.
Is that it? Okay. Administrative report. Do you have anything additional than what was on? Let me take a quick gander to see if there was anything.
It's a very busy report, all good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, again, when I read this, it makes you realize how many different things
Yeah.
Yes.
we are doing as a library, how many different staff members are just so key to making all of these really good things happen. So it's I always look forward to reading it, and this time I'm like, wow, there's just so much.
What's going on?
I've made a note to myself on this requirement number 7, at least one more board member to volunteer to watch the 1-hour webinar. Do I have any volunteers to watch that?
Watch it.
To watch what?
There's a webinar on the meeting,
Organizational management.
organizational management.
Yeah.
And
Can you
so-
send me a link to that?
Yeah.
Thank you, please.
It's in there, so one member has to watch it. More, it doesn't only have to be one, but
Oh,
you need
okay.
at least one board member fulfilling this requirement of watching this webinar.
Oh,
And so it's in the
It's
administrative
in there.
report. Yes.
And it's just so that we cover.
I
Becky,
can't
do
make
we
any
have
promises, but I'll-
conflict of interest statements this
Okay.
fall?
They will be done probably after January. then
After
we get
January.
The county will those out, and I'll make sure that people know they're going.
I'd just like to add a comment, a kudos. This is the appropriate time to do it related to the administrative report.
Yes.
Okay, and this is also an example of something that's hard to count that we were talking about before. But I often attend the music events, what we call the Karolinski events, but I know they're not just, but I attend, and this is just an example, but I attended the Afro-Cuban ensemble. And you have, I mean, there's plenty of room for everybody. It's a very welcoming environment, but it's gotten to be a group of people who are always there. We always greet each other. We always introduce friends we've brought with us. It's become a real community thing. And I don't know how you would measure that. It is wonderful.
It's great.
But you know, we've got to figure out a way to measure the warmth in the room and how good the musicians were and how they allow kids to dance, which I think is really important because at Cranard that wouldn't be allowed. So I just want to express that those musical events are a real big thing here.
And I will share back that when the staff are talking about things that the library already does and does well and things we could be doing, more Carol came up.
Yeah, it's
As an example of excellence.
it's extraordinary.
My husband came home talking about her the other day, so.
Yeah, it's, right. Thank you, but it's really great stuff.
I have no report, see no unfinished business, I see no new business. I declare this meeting adjourned.